This is what makes women's basketball so fire.
I mean, I just love playing the game. It's fun.
To see how far the game has grown has been amazing.
They say nobody watching. That's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in there, Martin.
Yeah, I think I've always just been able to get downhill.
When recess came, I had my sneakers on.
I hit them with a hezzy. After that, they quit.
Ooh-wee.
What is up? What is up? What is up? What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Protect Our Queens podcast presented by Basketball Society. With me, as always, my brother in Christ, my partner in women's basketball crime, Martin Soaries, my guy. Happy Monday, man. How we doing?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Long weekend. Long weekend. But I know it was a long one for you too. You've just moved. You've relocated.
Yeah. That did happen.
New spot, it's a lot more new computer, new
computer. Yeah.
New
computer, new spot, new setup.
New money.
Yeah, everything is new, man. It's nice little, and right on time too. Month's almost over. Next month's gonna be a nice month for me. Birthday's next month. Everything's shifting right now. Nice little shift happening right now. I like what I'm seeing. I like what I'm feeling, bro. How you been, man?
Man, just a lot going on. A lot going on. Including what we're getting ready to discuss. I spent some of the weekend in between all the stuff that was happening on my end, just thinking about what I was going to say this morning, honestly, because it's literally mind-blowing what's happening right now in women's college basketball.
No, absolutely, for sure. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot happening. For those guys that are watching, we are going to be talking about MiLaysia Fulwiley, who announced that she is transferring to LSU. Aside from that, though, training camp started for the WNBA over the weekend as well for a lot of teams. Some teams started yesterday. Other teams, I believe, started on Saturday. We are just a couple weeks away from the beginning of the season. Season tips off May 16th. So there's a lot even happening with that as well. But as Martin said, there's a lot to talk about, mainly surrounding MiLaysia Fulwiley. So we're going to play a clip of us from the show when we reacted to MiLaysia announcing that she was entering the transfer portal, and then we'll come back on the other side and jump right in. Let's say she does go to LSU, which
LSU would be the most diabolical, bro. There's a couple SEC options I think that could be possible, but LSU would be the most diabolical option.
It would be really nefarious, and I don't know if LSU would be the place for her to go. But let's say
I would like it for her.
I mean, Kim Mulkey didn't know what she was doing with Haley Van Lith. I mean,
that's not Haley Van Lith, bro. And
exactly, that's my point. How is she gonna know what to do with MiLaysia?
But what I mean is, you almost don't need to know what that's she's coming from a coach that knows what to do, and she wasn't pleased with how she was used. Go somewhere where they listen. Kim would roll that, but girl, do what you do. Be you. Nefarious on all counts.
Very nefarious. So if you've been living under a rock over the last couple of days, MiLaysia Fulwiley, homegrown talent from South Carolina, announced that she was transferring from South Carolina to LSU to team up with Flau'jae Johnson, to team up with Michaela Williams, and of course to be coached by Kim Mulkey next season. And there's a lot to unpack here, right? There's a lot happening. There was a lot of reactions. Obviously, Flau'jae was pumped. Michaela was pumped. Tahina Pow even excited. There's a lot of different angles that we can go on, but I want to start here, kind of picking up with something I mentioned in that clip about, there's a lot of mixed reactions. You were very vocal on the show last season when Haley Van Lith was at LSU, talking about how just Haley Van Lith didn't look the way that we expected her to look, how we're used to seeing her look, because of it seemed as if there wasn't a system. It seemed as if there was not a thought put into how Haley Van Lith would be used. And the point I brought up in the clip there is, I don't know if, you know what I mean, from the standpoint of what it means for MiLaysia to be successful, what is another brief kind of conversation we had in that episode as well, is transferring to LSU, is LSU the place where MiLaysia can be the most successful over her last 2 seasons of college basketball, considering where we know her game is right now, considering how, the flashes that we've seen from her, what we know about a player in Haley Van Lith who has transferred to LSU and not exactly had the best season? Like, do you think LSU is the place for MiLaysia to go to be the most successful, to maximize her last 2 years of college basketball?
That's a great question. And that is the question. I see it as like a yes and no, because even what I expressed to you, and I know a lot of people feel this way, understandably so, because I said it on that episode when we reacted to MiLaysia transferring, that it's hard to argue that Dawn Staley in South Carolina is not the best place for her to flourish, and most importantly, to become the pro that she's going to want to become at the next level. So I don't know anyone who's going to, again, I don't know anyone, but I know they're out there, people who are, pro MiLaysia, want to see her thrive and shine, want to see her not come off the bench, want to see her take more than 4 shots a game, want to see her really show what she can do. I'm one of those people too, but more people on the extreme side are glad that she's getting away from Dawn. I wouldn't go that far, because I'm sure she would have been fine. I mean, she's been competing for national championships. As long as she was willing to continue to be coached and stuff, South Carolina and Dawn Staley, it still is probably the best place for her. I can say that and admit that. And this is what I said before. In the same breath, I can still say that she can still have a great career elsewhere. It's not like if anywhere else she went, she's not going to be successful because she's not being coached by Dawn Staley. I don't believe that. I have enough confidence in her talent and her ability to believe that she can still have a successful college career over her last 2 years. Now, digging into the question a little bit more, LSU as the specific case study. So I had mentioned that, like, individually, I felt like anywhere she went, she'll be fine, because she's going to go somewhere where she's going to play more. Like, regardless of what we know, what we don't know, if it's her mom, if it's not, whatever, we knew she would go somewhere where she was going to play more and be able to take more shots. Right, wrong, indifferent, whether you agree or not, that's like, we knew that was going to be part of the selection process. I did not think it was going to be LSU. I just thought that was going to be too diabolical, too personal, because it's like, I didn't think, like, now, Marcus, this gives off the vibe that, like, she wants to stick it to South Carolina. Like, a lot of people are running with that narrative, right? And understandably so. You get it, because of the exact choice. I don't think it's that. Like, I don't think we get the sense that there's, like, bad blood, not unless there is some credibility to the stuff about her mom, like, driving her out and stuff. Her mom was in our Instagram comments going off on people. So you don't want to speak like you know what's going on. But yeah, I don't get the sense that she's trying to stick it to them. I think she made a pro her decision. What I had said was, like, it depends on the team she goes to gauge whether or not she'll have, like, a successful career in terms of, like, competing for national championships, which is what she was just doing for her first 2 years. Individually, just as an individual talent, I think that her talent could be more on display at LSU, which I think just individually will prop her up a little bit more. Will put her talents on and abilities on display more. So I just think I think it can be a both and. I think two things can be true. I think she can still have a great individual career at a place like LSU. Like I said in that clip, I think Kim Mulkey is going to make it her business to make sure that MiLaysia knows that she can be herself. I think that's the brand that Kim Mulkey has kind of established with LSU, with players like Flau'jae and Michaela Williams, even going back to Angel Reese. Think about Angel Reese, the difference between her before LSU, once she transferred to LSU, we saw her doing TikTok dances on the side, talking trash, and became the ultimate version of herself and won a national championship. I'm going to come back to that later because I think there's something to be said. There's an Angel Reese factor here that I think is going to be important. But I think that's the brand that Kim Mulkey has established, and I think that's gonna benefit MiLaysia. I will talk about the fit. I think the guard room is kind of interesting. We'll get into that a little bit because I think that's something to unpack too. But I think that I think MiLaysia Fulwiley is going to be on full display at LSU, and I don't know what that will mean in terms of competing for championships. They will be a top 10 team. They're going to be they're going to be competing. But I think it's possible that it could be both, and that South Carolina and Dawn was probably the best place for her overall long-term maturity, getting ready for pros, being coached at a certain level, working on her flaws, getting better at her weaknesses, all that. But that's not to say that she can't still thrive under a different coach, even a coach like Kim Mulkey, who, I had my concerns when Hailey Van Lith did not look like the Hailey Van Lith I knew when she went to LSU. I think that there was an Angel factor there too. There's no Angel Reese there where you're kind of playing through your big. I think they're going to be playing through their guards more so now. And Nisa Morrow's out of there too now. I don't know what other bigs they have or that they have coming in, but it seems like they'll more prioritize like their guards. Not to say Angel took away from Hailey Van Lith. I just thought Angel was such the focal point for that team and playing inside that Hailey Van Lith was relegated to being more of a traditional point guard. I don't think that is that's why I said what I said in the clip. Like, did you get what I meant by that? Like, I think you got it, but what are your thoughts on that in terms of like the difference between handling and managing a talent like Hailey Van Lith versus MiLaysia Fulwiley for Kim Mulkey?
Real quick, Lisa said good morning. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Lisa.
Thank you for chiming in with us. Chicago Cheetah also just asked the question. Now, she's no Hailey Van Lith we're talking about. So you're right? And to your point, I do agree, right? I think I'm aware, and I did understand what you were saying, right? I'm aware that MiLaysia Fulwiley and Hailey Van Lith are two completely different players. But in a way, that's kind of my point as to why I think that maybe like an Ole Miss may have made more sense in my mind, because when I think about what we saw from Hailey Van Lith, who is a more fundamentally sound basketball player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Than MiLaysia Fulwiley is.
Sure.
To see a player who had spent, was it 3 years in Louisville, develop and be what she was, one of the better point guards in the country, to go to LSU, and whatever the reason, whether it's because there wasn't a system really in place, whether it's because maybe they didn't know what to do with her, maybe it's because there was too much talent, because in that same year when Hailey Van Lith transferred, Anissa Morrow also transferred. Michaela Williams also committed, right? Like, and of course, you still have Hailey Van Lith. So it could have been, like we talked about, maybe just too much talent for LSU to handle. There could have been a bunch of different factors that went into that. And so in that regard, maybe this situation, as you mentioned, could be different because there is no Anissa Morrow. There is no Angel Reese, right? It's I don't want to say just, but they did have a lot of players into the portal. So in a way, it is just MiLaysia and Flau'jae and Michaela. And so maybe in that way, it will be different. But at the same time, with MiLaysia being a much more dynamic guard than Hailey Van Lith is, that's the part to me where I look at that Hailey Van Lith situation and I say, Hailey Van Lith was more fundamentally sound, yes, but MiLaysia is more talented, yes. But that doesn't necessarily mean, though, that MiLaysia is automatically going to, that her talent is automatically going to override and kind of push to the side. I don't want to say the lack of fundamentals, but weak fundamentals that she has. And so that's what that's the only thing that I've really been focused on. I think MiLaysia, as I've said on this show several times, I think she's a box office attraction. I think she is one of very few players in the country where you would pay the price of admission for your seat just to see her play basketball, whether you're courtside or all the way up in the nosebleeds. I don't think that that's going to change. And I think in some ways, again, because it's LSU And because it is just her and Flau'jae and Michaela, in some ways that's heightened. But at the same time, and this is a conversation I was having yesterday with a mentor of mine at church, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm wishing this upon her, but just in the grand scheme of things, with the way that MiLaysia plays basketball, right? Let's say over the next 2 years, MiLaysia were to suffer an injury, right? Like Juju did, or like Paige did. The big difference between Paige Beckers and why Paige was able to bounce back from multiple lower leg injuries, as you and I talked about, a reason why I think Juju will be able to bounce back from her ACL injury, is they are fundamentally sound basketball players. And they have enough experience where they realize that the way they used to play before injury isn't going to be the way that they can play after injury. And when I look at MiLaysia, I think about a player like, a Derrick Rose, or a player like a Kyrie Irving, who suffered lower leg injuries at some point in their career. And for both of them, it was different, right? They were able to, figure it out and adjust and still be able to be successful. Obviously, Derrick Rose wasn't at, didn't reach the heights that he did before injury, right? Kyrie Irving was still, we still talk about Kyrie Irving as one of the best in the business when he's healthy and available. I'm not saying that MiLaysia can't get there, but when I think about it fundamentally, and the reason why I think that, when we're talking, that's why I think it's important that we define what does success mean for MiLaysia these next 2 years, is because if the goal is to make it to the pros, MiLaysia is going to have to become a lot more fundamentally sound. And I don't know if LSU, not saying they can't, but I don't know if LSU would be the place where she can continue to grow fundamentally. I think that I agree with you. I think the decision to go to LSU is more, I want to play more. I want to play more on the floor. I want to showcase more what I can do. I want to get more minutes. I want to get more shots up. And again, as you mentioned, her mom has been in our comments. I'm not trying to come off saying like I know all that went into it. This is just my speculation. It seems like you go to LSU for that decision, right? Yeah. I think if she goes to an Ole Miss, maybe that would make me think maybe she wants to kind of continue to work and be more well-rounded, be more part of a team, develop the fundamentals a little bit more so that she can be pro-ready. Not to say she won't be pro-ready coming out of LSU, but that's kind of where when I bring up the Hailey Van Lith point, I know that she's not Hailey Van Lith, right? But in the same ways that she's more dynamic than Hailey Van Lith, in that same way, Hailey was more fundamentally sound going to LSU, where you knew if Hailey were to transfer as she did and go somewhere else, she could get back to being her old self and her stock could raise as it did. So that's why I've been bringing up the whole Hailey Van Lith thing. Because like she's not, but the same way that she's not Hailey, Hailey's not her. And I think those are two stark differences that when we're talking about, again, what does success look like? That's something that you kind of have to, at least for me, that's something that I've been kind of keeping in mind and kind of gauging to kind of figure out what that could look like for her over the next 2 years, assuming she doesn't transfer again after this.
Yeah, no, that's well said. That makes a lot of sense to me, and that's very well said. I think what we're really getting into is the notion that, because this is what I meant by like the guard situation. Like we know there's a lot of talent there, a lot of offense, shot making, whatever, between MiLaysia, Flau'jae, Michaela, but in that group, MiLaysia's the point guard. So to your point now, and this is where like, this is what I am watching for. This is what I mean. I think that LSU equates to more basketball freedom, like we've been talking about. That like seeing that decision, it's like, okay, now I don't like, and I hear you. I'm not to backlash on your point, but like when you say when it's fundamentals, like it's not necessarily, it wouldn't be the program, it's the coach. So like I don't personally know how much Coach Yo at Ole Miss. I'm not saying she doesn't. I'm just saying I don't have awareness of like what she does to. I know her as like an energy players coach. I not that she's not a fundamentals person. Ole Miss to me would have signaled more, like I was saying, like she wants to be more part of a team. Cody McMahon just went there. So she like Ole Miss would have been an interesting move from like being part of a collective team with different parts. And LSU signals like I want to play with other really good talent and I want a little more freedom. That is going to be still the challenge for Kim Mulkey. Even though, like, when I say MiLaysia is not Hailey, and what I was alluding to in that clip, it's not like I'm saying MiLaysia doesn't need to be coached. It's not like I'm saying you just give her the ball and go. But the thing about like Kim Mulkey's system, like when we talked about the system or lack thereof, there was a system with Haley Van Lith. The system was Angel Reese. Like that was the problem, is that the system wasn't like Haley Van Lith. What kind of system was she in at TCU that made her look so good, Marcus? Pick and roll offense, ball screens every possession. I never saw ball screens for her at LSU. I saw her go to the wing, pass, they're looking down low for Angel, the high low. That was their system. And Flaugier is an all-around player. She's a wing. So she can get it whenever, like she can figure it out. Michaela Williams, one of the best scorers in the country. Again, little taller, more of a wing. She can get in and fit in and score. Like she'll score. She doesn't need too many plays run for her, is my point, you know? But there was a lot of talent on that team for Haley to have to figure out, for Mulkey to have to, like, I just think that, I think you have a really good point, because MiLaysia is going to have to embrace some point guard responsibilities here. And that's where we're going to see what Kim Mulkey can really do to not only make sure that she's comfortable and free, but helping her to more run the team, because she is the point guard in that 3-guard group. Michaela and Flaugier they're on the wing. They're your shooting guards. They're your wings. MiLaysia needs to be at the point of attack. So I don't know I don't know off the top of my head what other guards they have. I'm sure there will be lineups with MiLaysia still being able to play the 2 and off the ball, but she's a smaller guard. She's going to have to embrace some point guard responsibilities here. And I think that Haley Van Lith was easier to go ahead and I'm not saying that Kim Mulkey was deliberately actively taking away her shots or telling her to not be aggressive or anything. I just think between the way the team was constructed, what they were trying to do, which was mainly get it inside, mainly to Angel Reese and get it in the paint. I think it became all too easy for Haley to like play the background, be a traditional point guard, because she is fundamental. She is like more of a, like, I'll get in where I fit in. Let me show I can run your offense. Like clearly she had more to offer, but because of her fundamentals, she could just be the point guard. She could, and I'll take shots when I get open looks. But to me, that took away from her scoring rhythm and momentum, because she wasn't getting a whole lot of shots. So then when it was time to shoot, it's just more pressure on those very few shots that she was getting. That's where I'm saying MiLaysia is not her, because there's nothing Kim Mulkey can do. There's nothing Flaugier. There's nothing anybody can do to keep MiLaysia Fulwiley. She's coming to you and you know what she is. There's no chance that someone like her is going to be anywhere close to being a traditional point guard, but she is going to have to take on some point guard responsibilities. So that's where the coaching is really going to come into play here.
I mean, and I think in some ways, ironically, like MiLaysia transferring to LSU is very similar to Tanaya transferring to South Carolina, right? Like when you have the #1 scorer in the country transferring to your program, as we talked about, with the way that we have known and grown to know South Carolina to play basketball, that high-low, dump it inside, like that, as we talked about, has to signal that South Carolina is going to make adjustments to make sure that Tanaya Latson can still be herself and still be the dynamic guard that led the country in scoring. In that same way, to your point, LSU knows LSU knows what they're getting out of MiLaysia Fulwiley. They've played South Carolina 5 or 6 times in the last 2 years. So like they know what she is, they know what she's capable of, and Kim Mulkey knows that if she's getting MiLaysia to commit here, a part of that is making sure that MiLaysia feels empowered to be herself. And so ironically, I think, even though as a fan it sucks that we can't see Tanaya and MiLaysia on the floor together in South Carolina, those situations, those scenarios do feel very, very similar in that regard. But going back to your point about her being the point guard, that again to me is where I have to sit back and I have to say, like I was saying in that show a couple weeks ago, that's where I think we're really going to see this crowd of what kind of MiLaysia fan are you versus what kind of South Carolina fan are you? We're going to see how that's really dispersed across the bell curve as the season's going next season, to see kind of what the conversations are. Because again, what does success look like? Is success competing for national championships? Because if that's the case, like you said, there's only one other place really that you would say is better suited to win a national championship going into next season than South Carolina. And that's the team that we just saw won the national championship, UConn, right? That's not to say that LSU won't be in the mix, but if we're just asking how many teams are you putting above South Carolina and win a national championship, the only team you're probably definitively putting ahead of them is the team that just won it, right? So let's take national championships off the board. Are we saying that success is scoring more points and playing more minutes? Okay, if that's success, she could have gone to any team in the country for the most part. I threw Howard up there just to be funny. We talked like she could come to DC and she
average 40,
and she can average 40. And if success is playing more minutes and scoring more points, there's a bevy of schools across the country, D1, D2, D3, JUCO, that she could have gone to if that's what success looks like. So I think the most interesting component about all of this is how is that conversation of how are people going to determine whether or not MiLaysia transferring was successful or not. Because depending on what you define as success is going to determine how you view that conversation. For me, I think I know anyway, the goal for MiLaysia Fulwiley is to one day hear her name called in the WNBA draft and play in the WNBA, right? As is the goal for a lot of these players that are getting, like, you don't get into, for the most part, you're not getting into this if that's not the goal, right? And so for me, I have the wait and see approach, because I'm not going to say that she can't do it. I'm not going to say that she won't do it. I'm not going to say that LSU isn't equipped to get her there. But I think as exciting as it's going to be to see MiLaysia play with Flau'jae and Michaela Williams, as exciting as it's going to be to see how Kim Mulkey and LSU unleash MiLaysia Fulwiley to kind of prove a point, right? As exciting as it's going to be to see MiLaysia in purple and gold in the LSU South Carolina game that's coming next season, as exciting as that's going to be, as box office and as interesting as all that's going to be, for me, I want to see how MiLaysia is going to develop as a player. Because whether you guys like it or not, like whether you're a fan of MiLaysia or not, whether you're a fan of South Carolina or not, even more specifically, whether you're a fan of Dawn Staley or not, here's what we have to recognize. In many ways, MiLaysia Fulwiley coming off of the bench is what was best for her in many instances. I think back to, I've talked about it so many times on the show, I think back to the first time South Carolina played UNC her freshman year and how she got benched because of she wasn't playing good defense, and that was tough for her, and she cried and she had to be consoled. Martin, when South Carolina played UNC in the tournament that year, she had the same defensive assignment. She had Deja Kelly, and she was the best player on the floor. She played much better defensively. That was a lesson that she had to learn. And so, again, what I'm saying to all the South Carolina fans and all the MiLaysia Fulwiley fans out there who just want to see her unleashed, I wanted to see it too. And I'm excited to see her be unleashed. But at the same time, there is still value in having a little bit of structure and having those restraints, because clearly there are still things beyond the behind the backs, in transition and the no look passes and the flash. Like, there's more beyond that the coaching staff was seeing that needed to be worked on. And so being the point guard, she's going to be the starter. She's going to get more minutes. She's going to get more shots up. It's going to be interesting to see how that aspect of the conversation develops as the season goes on. And it's going to, I think it's going to show very similarly to how the Caitlin Clark coalition kind of showed their true colors as the season went on and certain things occurred. It's going to be interesting as the conversation develops to see who really are, the fans of MiLaysia who are really fans of her, to see her be the best she can be, versus the fans of MiLaysia Fulwiley who just also happen to not like Dawn Staley and just wanted her to get away from Dawn. I think that conversation is going to be the most interesting part of all this as the season progresses, as her career progresses. Because again, I doubt she's going to transfer from LSU. I think this is it. When she declares for the draft, it'll be coming from LSU. So it'll be interesting to see how that conversation develops. Real quick, good morning. How you doing? Thanks for tapping in with us on this Monday. Jordan also said it's going to be a your turn, my turn type offense, because all three, referring to MiLaysia, Flau'jae, and Michaela, are score first players.
Yeah, and that's risky. Listen, Kyrie, Harden, KD in Brooklyn didn't work out. Injuries, the big toe against Milwaukee, like there are things you can point to that, like, well, they, there were a lot of what ifs in that scenario, But even more recently, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, another big three KD was part of recently that where he was with two other buckets, your turn, my turn style, and it just didn't work, So it really, when you have that kind of 3-person, your turn, my turn, all bucket getters, we're all dynamic, we can all score. The other players are just as important when you look at the potential to do something special, because it's, a lot of the attention is going to be on those three. Those three are probably going to do the majority of the scoring, the majority of the shooting, but you still need bigs. Like, again, I'm not even that familiar with the rest of their roster. The rest of the roster is going to be just as important as the three of them to just create more of a wholesome, balanced attack. Because it can't just be the three of them every night. I mean, against some teams, yeah, like against some teams, sure. But being in the SEC is crazy. Going to LSU was just absolutely diabolical. Like, to stay in the SEC, again, obviously means you're going to play against South Carolina. Like that in itself is just wild. So it is like, it feels a lot like, yeah, to your point. And that's why I said, like, I think Kim Mulkey would be good for her, because not only because of her style of a little more freedom, but also because, listen, let's just put it out there. There's the dynamic of, you lost your hometown girl. MiLaysia's from South Carolina. She's choosing Kim Mulkey over Dawn Staley. It kind of reminds me of Olivia Miles choosing the TCU coach over Niele Ivey. Like, that's where this transfer stuff starts to become interesting, because it's like players aren't just choosing programs, they're choosing to play for a certain coach. And so I agree with everything you said. That's why I started by saying, and I will keep saying, like, no one can argue that Dawn Staley is not the best place for a young woman to thrive and succeed and become a pro. Look at all the examples she has of the young women that did that, that have moved on and done well. But you can also point to examples like Zia Cook, who I have brought up when talking about South Carolina in the past, where, yeah, she had a successful career, competed, won national championships, was at the top level. What is she in the WNBA so far? She's trying to find her place. And that's not Dawn's fault. I'm not putting that on Dawn. I'm just saying Zia Cook in high school versus Zia Cook in college, completely different players. And she stuck it out and she remained loyal. She had a great career, successful, but individually she was not the same Zia Cook. And I think that hurt her going into the WNBA. I do. I don't think she has the same confidence that she once had. I don't think she's the same. Like, it's still there, but I just think her being willing to sacrifice for her successful college career took away from her individual ability. That's just what I saw. That's my opinion. I think that could have happened to MiLaysia. So, I mean, there are factors here. I'm with you. I got to see it. Like, there's no predictions being made here. No one's saying, oh, this team's going to win the SEC, no, we know what you remember when Steve Nash went to the Lakers to play with Kobe and Dwight Howard, and in the infamous, I think it was Slam. But someone put Steve Nash and Dwight Howard on the cover, and they had the ball and they like this. And do you remember what the byline was?
No, I was very young.
The byline was, "This is going to be fun." It wasn't that much fun as a Kobe Lakers fan, forever. And then, now, and forever. Not as much Lakers fan that passed with the late great Kobe, but it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. It seems like it might have been, but it wasn't. And that's different than this. But that's what the caption was. I saw LSU post that. This is going to be fun. And we all, like, it sounds exciting. It sounds fun, looks fun, but you still got to make it work in terms of winning. So there's a twofold thing to this, again, from my perspective, individual versus team success. Now, she didn't go to a Howard or a St. John's or a Hofstra where she could just average 40 and then clearly wasn't like prioritizing like team. I think choosing LSU, which is a top program in the country, a national championship winning coach, right? It's not Dawn. but it's Kim Mulkey, who has won national championships as well recently. So it's not like she's just, I mean, she's still wanting to have team success. LSU,
it's the best of both. It's the best of both worlds for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it. It's a little more of the individual priority. It's still a team, you know, it's not South Carolina, but it's LSU. Again, it's a successful program. So it's not, I mean, so it does show some of her motive where like, hey, I want to compete. I still want to compete at a high level. I still want to try to compete for national championships. Again, within the same conference is just insane. The fact that it landed that way, and not just in conference, because it could have been Ole Miss, it could have been Texas A&M or something like LSU rivalry. It's a legit known rivalry. Fans on Twitter, LSU, South Carolina, they are at war every day. I swear it feels like over something, just anything. It's not even the season right now, and they still now they have this to argue about, but. I mean, I will say too, like, I mean, she's put somewhat of a target on her back. Like she's added some pressure to herself to show like, okay, this is the better place for me. This is where I believe you will see me more so thrive than what I was doing at South Carolina. And it's pressure on Kim Mulkey to show like, hey, watch what I can do with her. Watch what we do with her. And not only to show that she can be great individually, but like, hey, we're still going to compete and look to win at a high level with this group. So it's going to be really like, this is where, like I had said on our last show, or not our last show, but when we were reacting to her transferring, even though I'm pro MiLaysia and I'm a huge MiLaysia fan, and I wanted to see her make a move with a little more freedom. I had said, like, I'm not saying that like she by herself is going to make a program a national championship program. She still has to be around. She still has to be coached. She still has to be around other good players. Like, you know, she's not just she's not a Giannis. Like, she's not coming in and just solely dominating the whole game, the whole program. You know, she's a small guard. She's dynamic and she can do a lot of things, but at the end, she's still a small guard. So there's only so much she can do, but it's going to be interesting because her impact, MiLaysia Fulwiley's presence and impact is going to have a lot to do with how great LSU is this coming season. Like we saw, I mean, they lose Anissa, but you still have Flau'jae and Michaela. So now you're adding another dynamic guard. This is going to be a really interesting experiment. And a lot of it really is going to hinge on how great is MiLaysia Fulwiley at not only being a great talent and doing the dynamic things, but getting into some of her fundamentals, running the team in some aspects. Flau'jae can play a little point. Again, they probably have another small guard that can play point at times, run MiLaysia off the ball. But she's not going to be just a scorer. There is going to be, and look, we agree on Dawn, but we'll see what kind of development she can have under Kim Mulkey. Angel Reese did great, did better than great. Like, you know, I think certain personalities might be better suited for Kim Mulkey. Certain games, certain play styles we'll see, might just work better under Kim Mulkey. Not even better. It's just a chance to be more yourself. That's what I said in that clip. I think Kim Mulkey, listen, I reference back to the old girl who does the hilarious impressions of Kim Mulkey. She is telling MiLaysia Fulwiley, play ball. Play ball. That's what it's going to be. And that doesn't equate to national championships right away. That's not to say that as a team, they're going to be better than South Carolina or anything like that. They're going to have to figure that out. That is still a job for Kim Mulkey to have to coach. Because even though I said, like, I don't want to make it seem like you don't have to coach talent like that. You know, like, I just don't think you have to overcoach it. Sure. And I think the way Kim Mulkey coaches, with her energy, with her enthusiasm, with like letting people more so be themselves and play a little more free, it could be possible. We'll see. That might be a better atmosphere for MiLaysia Fulwiley to thrive.
Sure. Real quick before we get out of here, let's just hit the comments and just see what people have been saying. We'll start up here. Tulip says South Carolina was turning Ja into Pat Bev. Let her cook. Free spirit needs to play free. She won her chip already. Time to show off her talent without a leash literally choking her.
Wow.
Chicago Cheetah chimed in and says, to me, it seems like redemption for her. I agree there. Tulip also says, when Leia's available, you have to take her. Not the ideal fit, but you cannot miss out on that scoring and ability.
Yeah.
Kim has always been successful in the transfer portal, even before the portal was what it was. That is
That's
very true. Jordan asked, how does Leia act when Kim gets on her for her mistakes? I think that is going to be one of the things to look out for.
Yeah, but it's the same question with Dawn. I mean,
yeah, but it's the same. It's the exact same thing.
I don't think she does it the same way as Dawn.
Right, which is why I think it'll be interesting to see how it happens. I think Kim's going to handle it much differently than Dawn would. Tulip says for a big sure, not for a free spirit guard. We got someone else asking, would you go as far as say Dawn's system diminishes PG competence? This was from when you were talking about Zaya Cook.
Yeah. So my sister, who knows Dawn well, played against her, who's a Division I coach. She said something to me recently, which I never considered about Dawn Staley. As a coach who was a player, you tend to, even as a trainer, like I know this as a trainer, you do tend to instill your preferences as a player. Now, so Dawn is a point guard. She was a defensive, stout guard. Like she wasn't known as, I mean, she could score, but she was known as like tough, gritty. You could see why Raven Johnson is her favorite. When you think about Dawn as a player and what she was like, you can see why someone like Raven is more of her favorite as a point guard, as opposed to someone like MiLaysia. You know what I mean? My sister was talking to me about that recently, and it made a lot of sense. Like, so to answer that question, like, I don't think point guards lose their confidence, because Dawn instills confidence in people. She's pouring into Raven Johnson is going to be ready for the pros. Just from a scoring standpoint, I stylistically, I don't think Dawn is a scoring point guard type of coach. I think she's just a little more old school, a little more traditional, wants her point guard to be more like a Raven Johnson than a MiLaysia Fulwiley. We talked about how, Tanaya Latson can help to kind of maybe change the culture a little bit. That's something we still need to see, is like, how many shots is she going to be given to like get up, on a regular basis, as coming in as the top scorer in the country. So we'll see. That's going to be another, the next kind of case study as like guards, dynamic guards under Dawn Staley. So Tanaya Latson is the next case study in that. And we'll see. She's going to be playing a lot of two next to Raven Johnson. She's not going to be the point guard. So again, that should signal that like she's, as the shooting guard, you're supposed to shoot, you're supposed to score. So like, we'll see what kind of sets, we'll see what kind of style they're playing to encourage Tanaya Latson to be a great scorer. But yeah, for point guard specifically, I don't think it's a matter of confidence. I think it's a matter of style when it comes to being a scoring point guard. And I just think, again, you look at Raven Johnson, if you remember Dawn Staley as a player, it makes sense why Raven Johnson is the kind of point guard that she prefers.
For sure. Just wrapping up in the comments, Tulip said Sinai Rivers left and now she is thriving. That's true.
Yeah.
Someone said going to Howard would have been interesting if only to cast some light on HBCUs. You know who is casting light on HBCUs? Diamond Johnson. Diamond Johnson just signed a training camp contract with Minnesota Lynx. So shout out Diamond Johnson.
Right.
Lay will have less team success at LSU, but at least she will get to start and not get benched every mistake while others around her get away with them.
Yeah.
So I think maybe this is just maybe so. Okay, this is why you like to have a show with someone who's played ball before. Because I've said it on the show before. I've never played organized basketball unless you count pickup at church picnics, whatever. So here's my perspective on the whole MiLaysia getting bench thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think when you have been on a roster longer, when you have played longer, when a coach knows you more, to me, it seems like on every level of any type of sport, your leash is longer,
And that seems to be the case, right? I don't think that is specifically a Dawn Staley, South Carolina, MiLaysia Fulwiley thing. I really, 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 really think, and I mean this as a fan of Dawn, as a fan of South Carolina, as a fan of MiLaysia, I really, really, really think that a lot of people are overstating this getting benched for your mistakes thing. I really, really do. And a reason why is because, again, when you have Raven Johnson, who you just said seems to be the preferred type of point guard that Dawn Staley likes because of how she played, when you have even a Tahina Paopao who played her 4th and 5th year at South Carolina, right? When you have all of these experienced players, it would, from the coaching perspective, it makes sense to me that if a younger player makes a mistake, you want to pull them out and you want to address it and let the older players who have made mistakes and learn from mistakes and are better equipped to bounce back from their mistakes in game to stay out there and get in the ear of the younger player who's still learning that. Like I really, me personally, and again, as someone who has never played ball before, this could all mean nothing, but to me, it feels like that component of this is really being stretched out and really being over exaggerated, because that's as long as I've known sports, as long as I've been around sports, that's what a coach is supposed to do. Coach is supposed to pull a player if they're making mistakes, talk to them, especially a young player, because one of the reasons why I don't play sports is because I made a lot of mistakes and I let them get to me up here and then it ruined everything else. That's why I do better talking about them. And I just feel like, would you rather, it's like a catch-22. Would you rather Dawn keep her on the floor, let her continue to make the mistakes and just unravel and then be a detriment to the team? Or when she makes a couple mistakes in a row, pull her, figure out what's going on, instill that confidence in her, like you said, and let the older veteran players who have made mistakes and know how to bounce back from mistakes in real time without letting them impact their play and impact the team stay on the floor? Like, to me, that seems like that's the thing you're supposed to do when you're a coach, is pull a player when they're making a mistake, especially when they're still young and still learning and they still need to be molded in some way. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but I just feel like the benching MiLaysia thing, I think that I'm not saying that doesn't matter, because again, I don't know. And I'm not going to say it's not, I'm not going to say it is. There's probably some component of it that does matter about wanting to play more, but I don't think that we should just, I'm not saying that this commenter was doing that, but I've seen a lot of people do it on Twitter and other places. I don't think we should just villainize Dawn Staley for doing her job is to coach and to put the best product on the floor at any given moment.
Here's where I've been struggling, Marcus, because you and I both love Dawn, trust Dawn. I try really hard not to sound like I'm criticizing an all-time great coach. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I really don't want to come off like I'm doing that, because I have too much respect for the woman. But here's where I've struggled, Marcus. As great of a coach as Dawn Staley is, one of the best, this is where I've struggled. Coach it out of her. So there are two sides to this, right? One is a lot of people because what you said is like, you're so right. You're right. You're perfectly right. That's her job as a coach, and she was doing it. MiLaysia could have, who knows, like, things could have been, maybe she played more next year. Maybe Dawn opened things up with Tanaya there. We talked about the system, the style could have changed. It could have been more guard oriented, more free flowing, which could have helped MiLaysia. She's got 2 years under her belt playing for Dawn. Maybe this summer, going into next year, the things that they've been working on, her defense and turnovers or whatever, she starts to clean that up. I mean, again, there's an easy argument that she could have stayed at South Carolina and been not only just fine, but even better, progressed in her career and done great things. But a lot of people believe in the philosophy of playing through your mistakes. Phil Jackson was really known for not calling timeouts. You know how some coaches in basketball, it's a thing where, like, when teams go on a run, some coaches are known for, like, it's not as common now, I don't think, but Phil Jackson was known for, like, the Lakers team would be on like a 15-0 run. Phil would just be sitting there in his high chair, like, figure it out. Zen.
We've seen Dawn do that a couple times. Yeah.
And we've seen Dawn do that a little bit, but with MiLaysia, again, the pro MiLaysia people, the extremists probably take it too far, but we've, and again, it's her job to pull her if she doesn't feel like she's doing the right things. But a lot of people feel that when you have a talent like that, let her play through her mistakes. Let her play through it. The only way to learn is by doing. That's just a fact, So again, I'm not criticizing Dawn. I'm not telling her what she should have done or could have done better. It's just that there is a philosophy, there is a model where you let the player play through their mistakes and they can learn that way. But again, I have struggled with this where I'm like, man, people are talking about these flaws with MiLaysia and this and that, while at the same time praising Dawn. And I'm like, well, shouldn't Dawn coach it out of her? Isn't that part of her job too? Like, shouldn't we be seeing and you mentioned gave a great example. The North Carolina game the year before or earlier in the season versus later in the season in the tournament. Two different MiLaysia Fulwileys. Clearly the lesson settled in. She learned from that, came back and had a much better game later in the season. That's a great example of Dawn's coaching working and benefiting her, and she learned and she was better for it. We literally saw it. But yeah, I just think certain players, like, I'm not going to be one of these people that's like celebrating her being off of Dawn's leash. Like, I'm not going that far with it, but I am a person that, as I've said, is looking forward to seeing MiLaysia in just with more freedom, just with more ability to make mistakes with a coach like a Kim Mulkey, who is more about freedom, let you be yourself. I don't know what that means in terms of her team success and her develop. I think she will still develop. Listen, there's a world where being coached by Kim Mulkey these last 2 years helps her just as much as being coached by Dawn Staley in her first 2 years. The first 2 years, she got a lot of system, a lot of structure, a lot of strong Black woman as her coach. Her last 2 years, she got this country Southern white woman who wears loud jackets and rolls it out and says, play ball. And that could benefit her just as much as what she got in her first 2 years. It's possible. We have to see it, but I think it's possible.
And going back to your point about the Angel Reese effect, I mean, obviously, Brenda Freese is not a strong Black woman, but Brenda Freese in Maryland, Angel spent 2 years at Maryland, a lot of structure at Maryland.
Yeah.
Again, one of the top programs in the country. She spent her first 2 years in college at Maryland. She goes to LSU, and it's like, as they say in the wrestling business, like a rocket ship got strapped to her back, and she's to the stratosphere. So you're right. In that component, again, another similarity. It could be that you go from one place, you get a lot of structure, you get all that structure invested in you, and you go to another place for 2 years, and it's just roll it out and play ball. And again, and I want to be perfectly clear, just because I am a fan of South Carolina doesn't mean I don't want to see MiLaysia be successful. I want her to be successful wherever she goes. Again, if she wanted to come to Howard, come. Average 40. If that's what success is for you, do it. I'll be at every game. Like, I live not that far. I'll do it. You know what I mean? If success for you is going to a place like LSU and just having that freedom while still being, that's fine. Again, I think a good part of it is just being able to define what that success looks like. And I think, again, that's going to be the most interesting component of all this. Just kind of sifting through the comments, trying to see.
The Nia Rivers one is a good example too, though. She went to a white man. She went to that white man at NC State and has done well. She's a top 10 draft pick.
8th overall pick in the draft this year. Yeah, she's doing good stuff. Just wrapping up what we got in the comments here. Jordan said, I think Notre Dame would have been a better fit for playing time in Final Four caliber team. Notre Dame next year.
You people throwing that out there, MiLaysia going to team up with Hannah at Notre Dame. Hey, I like it. I like the energy, but my Lord, what are we doing? We really just want to set the basketball world on fire out here, huh? MiLaysia and Hannah. Good God, what you people are sick in the head.
Chicago Cheetah responded to Jordan saying Notre Dame right now is not a Final Four team, so LSU is better next season than they were this season. That's crazy to say, but it's true. Fair enough. True. A couple weeks ago, the only 2 players on Notre Dame's roster was who Kylie Watson and Hannah Hidalgo, whether it's because of transfers or graduation. So they got a lot of rebuilding to do before we can talk about them being a Final Four team again. Someone asked if we can see Fulwiley implementing a branding strategy like Angel Reese.
What a great
I
question.
don't think so. That's an interesting question.
Well,
I don't think so.
Well, lay with the butter. I don't know.
Yeah,
Lay with
that's
the
already.
butter.
It's interesting. One thing that's interesting. It'll be another interesting weird thing about this. LSU is a Nike school.
Yes. And she's
Under Armour. She's Under Armour, so that'll be like another interesting thing about if she. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but maybe. Yeah. I mean, she's already laid with the butter.
I saw someone tweet. It only comes down to it's something where like she can't wear her shoes in warm-ups or in the game or something. It's really just a thing where she can't.
She's got to wear the. I got
yeah.
you.
Yeah. But that's a great. I love that question. That's a great question. And again, that speaks to the brand of what Kim Mulkey and look at what Flau'jae is able to do on and off the court, man. Mainly off the court is what I'm talking about as a, as not a rapper, a rap star. Like she's a star off the court. Angel Reese was a star. Like Kim Mulkey loves that. She encourages that. So maybe that becomes part of, what they do with her to prop her up. Cause that's kind of the LSU brand. I mean, they are about branding. I think Angel landed on something really unique with that Bayou Barbie thing. That was one of the best nicknames I had ever heard. I don't know if Lay is that creative or that willing to like go that far. But again, I mean, she Lay with the butter. When I first came across MiLaysia Fulwiley and broke down her game, I was looking at her AAU highlights. The video's right here on the channel, by the way. If you go to the breakdowns playlist, you'll see other breakdowns, but there's one on there. I actually broke down her and Keomi McMiller in the same video this is when I was first kind of getting familiar with their highlights and their film. Lay with the butter. When I saw her Instagram name was Lay with the butter, I said, oh yeah,
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, sign me up. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it's always a pleasure to tap in and talk women's basketball with my guy Martin Torres, and it's always a pleasure to have you guys tapping in with us. We appreciate all of you guys who tapped in with us live. We appreciate all of you guys who are watching on the playback. If you have not already, Country Croc, get on it. Oh, wow. If you have not already, please subscribe to Basketball Society on YouTube, not just for more of Protect Our Queens, but for more of all that Martin Torres and Basketball Society has to offer. When you're finished there, head over to Instagram, head over to Twitter, follow us on Instagram at @ProtectOurQueens_, follow us on Twitter at @POQueens_, then make sure that you are tapped in so you don't miss any future episodes of the Protect Our Queens podcast. So for my guy, Martin Torres of Basketball Society, this is Marcus of the Protect Our Queens podcast signing off. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, you enjoy yourselves some women's basketball.